What happens when the richest man to ever live decides to go on a road trip across the desert? This isn't a fairy tale, it's history, and the world has never seen anything like it since. This is the story of Mansa Musa, Emperor of Mali, and his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca. But it's not just about camels and gold. It's a journey that changed the global economy, rewrote the image of Africa in the medieval world, and helped spark a golden age of learning in West Africa. Let's begin. In the early 14th century, the Mali Empire was no minor kingdom tucked away in West Africa. It was a giant, a superpower fueled by gold. Founded by Sundiata Keita a century earlier, the empire stretched across modern-day Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Niger, Nigeria, Guinea, and beyond. Its power came from two things: its control over vast gold mines in Bambouk and Bour, and its dominance of the trans-Saharan trade routes. Salt, ivory, slaves, books, and above all, gold, flowed through its thriving cities like Timbuktu and Gao. At the heart of this empire stood Mansa Musa. Not much is known about his rise to power. Even today, there's debate over whether he was the grandson or grandnephew of Mali's founding king. But by 1312, Musa was crowned emperor. And unlike many rulers of his time, he wasn't just a warlord or merchant king. He was a devout Muslim with a vision. He wanted Mali to be more than rich. He wanted it to be holy, wise, and respected. For a Muslim king, there's one journey that defines your faith: the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. In 1324, Mansa Musa decided to make that journey. But this wasn't a quiet spiritual retreat. It was a grand production. Think less religious sabbatical and more rolling empire. Musa left his son Muhammad to rule in his absence, a sign of just how seriously he took the trip. Then he began assembling what may have been the most extravagant caravan the world had ever seen. By the time the group was ready to leave the capital city of Niamey, the scale was almost beyond belief. 60,000 people. That included officials, soldiers, attendants, and reportedly 12,000 slaves, each carrying about 4 pounds of gold bars. That's 48,000 pounds of solid gold, just in the hands of his entourage. Then came the camels, 80 to 100 of them, each loaded down with 50 to 300 pounds of gold dust. And leading the way, 500 slaves carrying golden staffs, dressed in fine Persian and Yemeni silk. Musa didn't just pack gold. He brought food, water, tents, and clothing for the entire caravan. He was effectively moving a portable kingdom across the Sahara. The route was grueling. From Niamey in Mali, they marched through Walata, Taghaza, and the oasis towns of Tuat, over 4,000 miles in total. The Sahara Desert was no easy crossing, even for a king. Blistering heat, sandstorms, and bandits were real threats. But Musa's forces were disciplined, and his reputation spread ahead of him. Every town they passed through was struck by the same impression. Who is this man? And what kingdom does he come from that he can afford to casually sprinkle gold on the ground? Then came Cairo. When Musa entered Egypt in July 1324, he did not sneak in quietly. The caravan camped near the pyramids of Giza before making its grand entrance into the city. According to eyewitness accounts, Cairo had never seen anything like it. At first, Musa refused to meet the Sultan of Egypt, Al-Nasir Muhammad, because court protocol demanded he bow. Musa, ever the theologian, said he would bow only to God. Eventually, he agreed to a respectful compromise and met the Sultan with all the pomp and courtesy a medieval ruler could offer. And then came the gold. Musa gave it away to the poor, to merchants, to officials, to entertainers. He flooded Cairo's markets with so much gold that its value plummeted. Inflation hit hard, and it wasn't just a local issue. The Egyptian economy suffered the effects of this gold rush for over a decade. Economists today still consider it one of the few times a single person caused a continental financial crisis just by spending too much. But Musa didn't stop there. He stayed in Cairo for 3 months, impressing scholars and clerics, befriending dignitaries, and turning heads with his wisdom as much as with his gold. To them, this wasn't some barbarian king from the jungle. This was a statesman, a scholar, a legend. After months in Cairo, Musa and his caravan resumed their pilgrimage to Mecca, the holy city that all Muslims, rich or poor, dream of reaching at least once in their lifetime. There, he would complete the rites of the Hajj. But even in the holiest of places, drama followed. According to some reports, a confrontation broke out between Musa's caravan and Turkic pilgrims in the Grand Mosque. Tensions flared, but Musa calmed things down. He wasn't just a spender, he was a diplomat too. While in Mecca and nearby Medina, he continued his wave of generosity. But more importantly, he made connections, scholars, architects, theologians. People he would bring back to Mali to help reshape his empire. Mansa Musa hadn't just reached Mecca. He was about to bring Mecca home. Mansa Musa had completed his pilgrimage. But the most powerful part of his story wasn't the gold he gave away or the headlines he made in Cairo. It was what he brought back home. Because the return journey wasn't just a road back to Mali. It was a turning point that would launch one of the greatest intellectual and architectural renaissances in African history. By 1325, Musa was on the move again, back across the Sahara. But this time, the treasures he carried weren't just golden. Among his entourage now were scholars, poets, architects, and Islamic jurists, many of whom he had met in Mecca or Cairo. He brought with him Arabic books, new ideas of law and administration, and skilled artisans who had never stepped foot in West Africa. It was as if he had gone on a pilgrimage and returned with a blueprint for civilization. But tragedy marked the return too. According to some chronicles, Musa's wife died during the journey. It's not clear how, but the loss was a heavy one. Still, the king pressed on, determined to transform his empire. Once back in Mali, Mansa Musa got to work. In the city of Gao, he commissioned new mosques and Islamic schools. In Niamey, his capital, he reorganized trade networks and streamlined government. But it was in Timbuktu where his vision truly took root. There he built the Djinguereber Mosque, designed by Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, an architect he brought back from Andalusia. Made of mud brick and wood, it still stands today, a monument to West African ingenuity and Islamic design. And he didn't stop with buildings. Musa poured resources into education. He expanded the Sankore University in Timbuktu, turning the city into a center of learning that rivaled the great universities of Cairo and Baghdad. At its height, Timbuktu housed over 25,000 students and a collection of manuscripts so vast in science, law, theology, medicine, that scholars today are still cataloging them. Mali, once a commercial empire, was now an intellectual powerhouse. Word of Musa's journey had rippled far beyond Africa. In 1375, decades after his pilgrimage, his image appeared on the Catalan Atlas, one of Europe's most important medieval maps. There he sat wearing a gold crown and holding a golden orb, with a caption that read, "This black lord is called Musi Meli, Lord of the Negroes of Guinea. So abundant is the gold found in his country that he is the richest and most noble king in all the land." To European cartographers, this wasn't just another king. This was a symbol of unimaginable wealth in a land they barely understood. His legend ignited centuries of speculation, trade, and later, exploitation. Musa's generosity in Cairo had already shaken financial systems, but his existence shook something deeper, the myth that Africa was a continent without civilization. Mansa Musa died around 1337. The details of his death are hazy, but the empire he left behind was stronger than ever. His son, Maga, took the throne, but no ruler, before or after, quite matched Musa's blend of ambition, wealth, and cultural vision. Over time, the Mali Empire declined. Songhai would rise in its place, and colonialism would erase much of Africa's medieval glory from Western memory. But Mansa Musa's story endured. Today, he's often called the richest person in history, with modern estimates of his wealth soaring into the hundreds of billions. But that number is almost beside the point. Musa wasn't remembered just because he was rich. He was remembered because he used that wealth to elevate an empire, building libraries instead of palaces, universities instead of thrones. The hero's journey ends where it began, in the heart of West Africa. But it's not the same land anymore. Mansa Musa's journey wasn't just about devotion or gold. It was about connection between Africa and the broader Muslim world, between wealth and wisdom, between power and purpose. In a world that often measures greatness by conquest, Musa showed another path, not with a sword, but with a book in one hand and gold in the other.